This particular seat might be challenging for someone of your dimensions. Miranda Hayes's voice sliced through first class like a blade, her theatrical gesture encompassing the leather seat with mock concern. Dr. Zara Washington froze mid-step, her tailored navy blazer suddenly feeling heavy under dozens of staring eyes. The flight attendant's manicured finger tapped against her clipboard, studying Zara's fuller figure with obvious disgust. "Ma'am, are you absolutely sure you're in the right section?" Around them, phones emerged from pockets. Cameras angled for the perfect shot. A teenager's live stream counter climbed. 47 viewers, 73, 156. The word hung in the recycled air like poison. Passengers leaned forward. A teenager's live stream counter climbed. 47 viewers, 73, 156. Zara's expression remained marble calm, but her grip tightened on an expensive briefcase marked with a partially visible logo. Have you ever watched someone's assumptions destroy their entire career in real time? Flight 447, Gate B12, 2:47 p.m. Miranda's smile widened as she extended her hand with theatrical authority. "I'll need to verify your boarding pass, ma'am. Just protocol." Zara handed over the document without a word, her dark eyes studying the flight attendant's performance. Miranda examined it like a forensic expert, turning it over twice, holding it up to the light. "Seat 2A," Miranda's voice dripped skepticism. "How interesting." She waved over David Rodriguez, the gate supervisor, whose thin mustache twitched as he approached. Miranda leaned close, stage whispering loud enough for nearby passengers to hear every word. "David, we might have a policy compliance issue here. You know how particular first-class passengers can be about their experience." Zara settled into her assigned seat with practiced grace, her movements deliberate and calm. She pulled out her phone, fingers dancing across the screen. "Running late for the 3 p.m. briefing. Handle the Pentagon call without me if needed." The text disappeared into cyberspace as 47 missed calls from Executive Assistant Urgent lit up her notifications. David squinted at the boarding pass, then at Zara, then back at the pass. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step aside while we resolve this situation." "What situation would that be?" Zara's voice carried the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being the smartest person in any room. "Well," David glanced at Miranda for support. "Sometimes tickets get mixed up. People use other people's accounts. Identity verification is important for everyone's safety." A teenage passenger in 4C had her phone trained on the scene, live streaming to TikTok. "Y'all, are you seeing this discrimination happening in real time? This is absolutely wild." The viewer count climbed, 234, 456, 891. Comments flooded the screen in real time. "Racism alive and well in 2025. Somebody call the news. Get their names and badge numbers." A businessman in seat 3B quietly opened LinkedIn, beginning to type. "Witnessing blatant discrimination on Flight 447, thread below." Meanwhile, a flight attendant trainee named Sarah discreetly recorded the interaction on her work tablet, officially for training documentation purposes, but her expression suggested otherwise. The gate agent's radio crackled to life. "Flight 447, what's your boarding status? We show delay on departure." Miranda keyed her mic. "Minor passenger verification issue. Should be resolved shortly." Zara checked her Rolex Submariner, a gift from the Secretary of Defense after her successful restructuring of airport security protocols. "Perfect timing," she whispered to herself, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. David's confidence grew with the audience. "Ma'am, I'm calling airport security. For everyone's safety, of course." "Of course," Zara replied, her tone suggesting she found the entire situation mildly entertaining. Her phone buzzed again. This time, the caller ID read, "Joint Chiefs, Conference Line." She declined the call and typed back, in the middle of something important. We'll call back in 15 minutes. Miranda's voice rose for the growing crowd. We have strict policies about ticket fraud. I've been doing this job for 8 years, and I can spot fake documents from across the terminal. The teenager's live stream exploded past 2,000 viewers. Donations began pouring in, viewers creating a legal defense fund for the victim of airline discrimination. Oh, this is why I don't fly. Somebody docks this airline. Miranda Hayes is about to be famous. A passenger in 5A Googled Ultramax Airlines stock price and watched it tick downward in real time as social media mentions spiked 400% in negative sentiment. Sarah, the trainee, noticed something the others had missed. Zara's briefcase bore a partially obscured logo, Aero Aviation Admin. The rest was covered by an expensive leather strap, but those visible letters suggested something significant. Zara's boarding pass lay on the seat tray, clearly displaying Platinum Elite, Government Rate in bold letters. Her frequent flyer number began with DOD, Department of Defense. Yet Miranda and David remained fixated on their performance, feeding off each other's certainty and the crowd's attention. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a brief 10-minute delay for passenger boarding procedures. We appreciate your patience. Zara opened her briefcase slightly to retrieve a pen, revealing thick manila folders marked with red, confidential stamps. A government security clearance badge clipped to the interior caught the cabin light. Miranda doubled down. I don't care what these documents say. Anyone can fake government paperwork these days. We're calling security. 2 airport security officers appeared at the gate, hands resting casually on their equipment belts. The lead officer, a veteran named Martinez, immediately recognized the tension level and approached cautiously. What seems to be the issue here? David puffed up his chest. Possible ticket fraud. This passenger may be using someone else's credentials. Martinez glanced at Zara, taking in her composed demeanor, expensive clothing, and the subtle confidence that radiated authority. His experience reading people sent up immediate warning flags. Ma'am, may I see your identification? Zara reached into her briefcase and produced a leather credential holder. Martinez opened it, his eyes widening slightly at what he saw. He closed it quickly and handed it back. And there's no problem with your ticket, correct? None whatsoever, Officer Martinez. Zara had read his nameplate from across the aisle. Miranda sensed the power dynamics shifting. I don't care what ID she has. We have policies about passenger safety and seating appropriateness. The teenager's live stream hit 5,000 viewers. Local news stations were already being tagged by viewers demanding coverage. Timeline, 2:52 p.m., 5 minutes to departure. Zara's phone displayed another urgent message. Pentagon meeting moved to 4 p.m. Can you make it? SecDef waiting for your security assessment. She typed back calmly. Absolutely, just wrapping up something important here. 2:52 p.m., 5 minutes to departure. The gate area transformed into a digital coliseum. Passengers abandoned their seats, forming a semicircle around the unfolding drama. Phones emerged like weapons, each capturing a different angle of Miranda's theatrical performance. I need backup at Gate B12, Martinez spoke quietly into his radio. Situation escalating. Within 90 seconds, Chief of Security Rebecca Walsh arrived, her silver badge catching the fluorescent lights. Behind her, 2 additional officers flanked the entrance, blocking any escape routes, standard protocol for passenger disturbances. The teenager's TikTok exploded past 15,000 live viewers. Comments streamed like digital wildfire. Somebody get CNN on the phone. This is viral material right here. That lady is too calm. Sus. Had black traveling while black. Miranda sensed the moment slipping away and doubled down with desperate authority. Chief Walsh, this passenger is using fraudulent documents to access first-class seating. I've been flying for 8 years, and I know ticket fraud when I see it. Walsh studied Zara with the calculating gaze of someone who'd spent 20 years reading dangerous situations. Everything about the woman screamed federal authority. From her posture to her expensive briefcase to the way she watched the chaos with detached amusement. "Ma'am, I apologize for the inconvenience. May I examine your credentials?" Zara handed over her ID wallet again. Walsh opened it, and her expression immediately shifted. She closed it and handed it back with newfound respect. "Dr. Washington, I believe there's been a misunderstanding." Miranda's confidence cracked. "Doctor? She never said she was a doctor?" "She shouldn't have to," Walsh replied coldly. The businessman in 3B published his LinkedIn post. Witnessing systematic discrimination on Ultramax Flight 447, flight attendant Miranda Hayes publicly humiliating passenger based on appearance. This is 2025, people. Thread 117. His post gained 47 shares in 3 minutes. Meanwhile, David Rodriguez frantically called Ultramax headquarters. "Sir, we have a situation at Gate B12. Passenger complaint, potential media exposure. The passenger has significant credentials." The corporate phone tree lit up like Christmas. Customer relations, legal department, and public affairs found themselves in an emergency conference call before anyone understood the scope of the crisis. Ultramax stock ticker, down 2.3% in 7 minutes. Sarah, the flight attendant trainee, recognized the shift in Walsh's demeanor and began backing away from Miranda. Her training tablet continued recording, but now she angled it to capture Miranda's increasingly erratic behavior rather than Zara's responses. The pilot's voice cut through the tension. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have an additional 5-minute delay. Air traffic control has cleared us for immediate departure once boarding is complete." 2:54 p.m. 3 minutes to departure. Zara's phone buzzed with a text from SecDef Personal. "Pentagon briefing starts in 47 minutes. Intelligence Committee waiting. Are you en route?" She typed back, "Slight delay, traffic control issue. We'll make the meeting." Miranda watched this exchange with growing panic. Important people didn't text casually with defense officials. Important people didn't remain calm under pressure. Important people certainly didn't smile while being publicly humiliated. "I don't care who she thinks she is," Miranda announced to the crowd. "We have policies for passenger safety. If someone can't fit comfortably in their assigned seat, they need to purchase additional seating or take a later flight." The crowd murmured disapproval. Several passengers had noticed Zara's calm confidence, her expensive accessories, and the way security treated her with increasing deference. Walsh keyed her radio. "All units, stand down. Repeat, stand down. This is not a security issue." But Miranda couldn't hear the warning signals. She was performing for an audience now, feeding off their attention and the live stream's growing viewer count. "Ma'am," Miranda addressed Zara directly, "I'm going to need you to deplane immediately. You're disrupting our departure schedule and making other passengers uncomfortable." Zara finally stood, her full height impressive despite her fuller figure. She towered over Miranda by 4 inches, her presence suddenly filling the space around her. "Miranda Hayes," Zara read from the flight attendant's name tag, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to command briefings. "Employee ID 47291. 8 years of service, you mentioned?" Miranda nodded uncertainly. "And David Rodriguez," Zara continued, turning to the gate supervisor. "How long have you worked for Ultramax Airlines?" 12 years, David replied automatically, confused by the shift in dynamics. Zara opened her briefcase fully for the first time. Manila folders with top-secret stamps became visible to passengers in the front rows. A government security badge clipped to the interior caught the light. Official letterhead peeked from beneath document covers. The teenager's live stream viewer count hit 25,000. Donations to the Legal Defense Fund reached $300-400 from viewers who assumed they were watching someone's civil rights being violated. Chief Walsh's radio crackled. "We've got media vans pulling up to Terminal B. Channel 7 News requesting access to Gate B12. "Negative," Walsh responded. "Secure the area. No media access until situation resolves." But the situation was already beyond containment. The businessman's LinkedIn thread had been shared 200 times. #Ultramax discrimination was trending locally on Twitter. Sarah discreetly texted her supervisor, "You need to see the training footage from Flight 447. Miranda is about to destroy the company." Ultramax Customer Relations received their first complaint call exactly 8 minutes after the initial confrontation. By minute 12, they had received 47 calls and counting. The corporate damage control team scrambled to understand what was happening, while stock analysts began downgrading Ultramax shares based on social media sentiment alone. 2:56 p.m. 1 minute to departure. All eyes focused on Zara as she methodically arranged documents in her briefcase. Her movements carried the precision of someone who had briefed presidents and defended national security budgets before hostile congressional committees. Miranda made one final desperate play for control. "Security, I need this passenger removed from the aircraft immediately. She's being disruptive and non-compliant with crew instructions." Walsh looked at Miranda with barely concealed disgust. "The only disruption I see is coming from airline personnel." "I don't care," Miranda's voice cracked with hysteria. "I don't care if she's a doctor or a lawyer or the Queen of England. She doesn't belong in first class, and I'm not backing down." The words hung in the recycled air like a confession. Zara smiled, not with malice, but with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had just watched their opponent complete their own destruction. She reached into her briefcase and withdrew a single document. The header was visible to passengers in the front 3 rows. "Department of Homeland Security, Contractor Security Clearances." Walsh immediately recognized federal paperwork and stepped back, creating space between herself and what was about to unfold. The pilot's voice came over the intercom one final time. "Ladies and gentlemen, please prepare for immediate departure. All passengers should be seated at this time." 2:57 p.m. Departure time. 28,000 people were now watching the live stream. Miranda Hayes had no idea she was about to become the most infamous flight attendant in aviation history. 2:57 p.m. The moment of truth. Zara placed the document on her seat tray with surgical precision. The official letterhead caught the cabin light. Department of Homeland Security, Aviation Security Division. She adjusted her reading glasses, a gesture that somehow transformed her from victim to prosecutor in a single moment. The briefcase clicked open fully, revealing neat stacks of classified folders, each bearing red, confidential stamps. Miranda leaned forward, squinting at the paperwork. "I don't care what fake documents—" Her voice died as she read the document header. "Ultramax Airlines, Federal Security Contractor Agreement, Annual Value, $1.247 billion. The blood drained from Miranda's face like water from a broken dam. Zara's finger traced down the page to a signature line in bold type. Dr. Zara M. Washington, Deputy Director, Transportation Security Administration, Contract Authorization Officer. The cabin fell silent, except for the hum of air circulation and the quiet clicking of phone cameras capturing everything. Chief Walsh stepped back instinctively, her 20 years of experience screaming warnings. Federal contractors didn't joke about billion-dollar agreements. Deputy directors didn't travel commercial unless they wanted to remain unnoticed. Until now. David Rodriguez's radio crackled. "Gate B12, we have Ultramax Corporate on emergency line. Patch through immediately." Sarah, the trainee, zoomed her tablet camera on the document header. Her hands trembled as she realized she was recording the end of Miranda's career in real time. The teenager's live stream exploded past 40,000 viewers. Comments flooded the screen faster than anyone could read. "Holy shit, she's federal government. That flight attendant is so fired. Billion-dollar contract on the line. This is about to get nuclear." Zara removed a second document from her briefcase. This one bore the seal of the Department of Defense and today's date. Contract renewal recommendation. Deadline, 4 p.m. at... She held it up for Miranda to see clearly. "I have 37 minutes to submit my recommendation to the Secretary of Defense. regarding Ultramax Airlines' continued eligibility for federal security contracts. Miranda's legs buckled. She grabbed the seat back for support, her manicured nails digging into the leather. The contract covers airport security services, passenger screening oversight, and anti-terrorism coordination across 347 major airports, Zara continued, her voice carrying the measured cadence of someone briefing congressional committees. Annual value, $1.247 billion. Renewable annually based on compliance with federal anti-discrimination statutes. David's radio squawked again. Emergency conference call with CEO's office. We have media trucks at Terminal B and stock price falling. What is the situation? Walsh quietly stepped between the passengers and the unfolding catastrophe, creating a barrier with her body language. She'd seen federal investigations destroy entire companies. This felt like watching a controlled demolition. Zara opened her phone and scrolled to a contact labeled CIADF, Direct Line. Her thumb hovered over the call button as she looked directly at Miranda. Would you like me to call the secretary now? Or would you prefer to continue this discussion about my dimensions? The word carried the weight of a federal civil rights violation. Miranda finally understood she wasn't dealing with an angry passenger who might write a complaint letter. She was facing someone who could erase her company from government contracts with a single phone call. The businessman's LinkedIn post had been shared 847 times. Ultramax meltdown was trending nationally. Cable news networks were already assigning reporters to the story based on social media buzz alone. Ultramax stock price down 11.7% and falling. Sarah's supervisor texted back, "Stop recording! Secure all devices! Legal department en route!" But it was too late. The training documentation was already uploaded to corporate servers. The live stream was being screen recorded by thousands of viewers. The LinkedIn thread was being screenshot and shared across every social platform. 2:59 p.m. The corporate scramble. Miranda's radio crackled with panicked voices from headquarters. Flight 447, identify the passenger immediately. We have Federal Contracts Division on the phone. Zara heard every word and smiled. Dr. Zara Washington, Deputy Director TSA, Employee ID Delta 7749, Security Clearance Level, Top Secret SCI. She recited her credentials like reading a grocery list, each word landing like a hammer blow on Miranda's career prospects. Walsh's radio erupted. All units, we have Ultramax executives en route to airport. ETA 12 minutes. Media containment is priority 1. The gate area buzzed with whispered conversations as passengers began understanding they were witnessing something unprecedented. The teenager switched to Facebook Live, reaching a fresh audience of 15,000 viewers within minutes. Zara retrieved a third document. Federal Contractor Compliance Audit, Discrimination Violations. She opened it to a page marked with yellow highlighting. Section 14.3 clearly states that any federal contractor engaging in discriminatory practices based on race, gender, religion, or physical appearance faces immediate contract termination and 5-year blacklisting from all government business. Miranda finally found her voice, though it came out as a whisper. I was just following company policy. Which policy? Zara's tone remained clinical, professional. The one that authorizes employees to judge passengers' physical appearance? Or the one that permits public humiliation based on body size? David tried desperately to salvage the situation. Dr. Washington, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Miranda was just following training, Zara finished. I'm quite familiar with Ultramax's customer service protocols. I've reviewed them extensively as part of our security partnership evaluation. The implications hit David like a physical blow. The federal government had been studying their company policies. They knew about systemic issues. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was evidence of institutional problems. 3:01 p.m. The phone call. Zara's phone rang. The caller ID displayed Pentagon Joint Chiefs. She answered with casual authority, "Doctor, Washington. The voice was audible to passengers in nearby seats. Zara, we're starting the security briefing in 30 minutes. Are you going to make the recommendation deadline? Absolutely, General Morrison. I'm conducting field research on contractor compliance right now. Very illuminating. Good. The Secretary is particularly interested in your assessment of Ultramax. We've been getting concerning reports. Miranda's face turned ash gray. The Pentagon was already investigating Ultramax. This incident wasn't creating a problem. It was confirming existing suspicions. I'll have my full recommendation within the hour, Zara continued. The field data is quite comprehensive. She ended the call and looked directly at Miranda. General Morrison sends his regards. The teenager's live stream peaked at 67,000 viewers. Viewers were sharing clips across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube faster than platform moderators could track. Hashtag Federal Contractor Fail became a trending hashtag. Chief Walsh received an urgent text from airport operations. CNN and Fox News crews requesting access to Gate B12. Airport director wants briefing ASAP. 3:03 p.m. The documentation. Zara methodically photographed her boarding pass, the discriminatory statements, and the witnesses with her government-issued phone. Each image was automatically time-stamped and GPS tagged for federal evidence standards. Miranda Hayes, employee ID 47291. She spoke clearly for the recording devices around her. At 2:47 p.m., you stated that my physical dimensions made me unsuitable for first-class seating. You demanded verification of my ticket based on your assessment of my appearance. You called for security removal based on body size discrimination. Sarah's tablet captured every word. The corporate legal department would spend weeks analyzing this footage. David Rodriguez, gate supervisor, 12 years of service, Zara continued. You supported discriminatory actions, called for identity verification without cause, and escalated the situation to security based on physical appearance bias. David's career flashed before his eyes. 12 years of perfect performance reviews meant nothing if federal investigators found systematic discrimination patterns. The pilot finally appeared in the cabin doorway, having been summoned by the unusual delay. He took one look at the scene, federal documents, security officers, phones recording everything, and immediately radioed air traffic control. Flight 447 requesting indefinite ground delay. Passenger services issue requiring resolution. 3:04 p.m. The ultimatum. Zara closed her briefcase with quiet finality. She had everything she needed. Documented discrimination, multiple witnesses, recorded statements, and clear policy violations by a federal contractor. Ultramax Airlines has exactly 26 minutes to present a remediation plan, she announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to congressional testimony. Remediation for what? Miranda asked desperately. Federal civil rights violations, discriminatory business practices, and breach of contractor compliance standards, Zara replied. Your CEO's office should be calling momentarily. As if summoned by her words, David's radio exploded with activity. Gate B12, this is CEO Roberts' office. We have Federal Contracts Division, Legal Department, and Public Relations on emergency conference. Patch through immediately. Miranda finally understood the magnitude of her mistake. She hadn't just insulted a passenger. She had created a federal incident that could destroy a billion-dollar government contract and eliminate 45,000 jobs. The teenager's live stream hit 89,000 viewers as word spread across social media. Miranda Hayes was about to become the most notorious flight attendant in aviation history. Zara checked her watch. 25 minutes remaining. 3:05 p.m. The federal evidence. Zara opened a fourth folder marked Incident Documentation Protocol. Inside were pre-printed federal forms for contractor violations, each bearing official government seals. Form 447B, Civil Rights Violation Report, she read aloud. To be filed within 24 hours of any discriminatory incident involving federal contractors. She began filling out the form with clinical precision, her pen moving steadily across official checkboxes. Discrimination based on physical appearance, public humiliation of passenger, escalation without cause, multiple witnesses present. Miranda watched her career being documented in real time, each checkmark another nail in her professional coffin. The teenager's live stream comments exploded with legal expertise from armchair attorneys. Federal forms don't lie. She's filing official complaints. Miranda is done for. This is better than Law and Order. Sarah discreetly Googled TSA Deputy Director salary on her phone, $180,000 annually. Then she searched TSA Deputy Director authority, and her stomach dropped. These officials briefed Congress, testified before Senate committees, and had direct access to cabinet-level decision-makers. Miranda had insulted someone who regularly sat in rooms with the most powerful people in Washington. 3:06 p.m. The corporate panic intensifies. David's radio erupted again. Gate B12, this is Ultramax Corporate Communications. We have USA Today, Washington Post, and CNN requesting statements. What is the passenger's identity? Walsh intercepted the radio. This is Chief of Security. The passenger is Dr. Zara Washington, Deputy Director of the Transportation Security Administration. The silence on the radio lasted exactly 7 seconds before chaos erupted. Confirm that identity. Get legal on the line now. Stock is down 15%. CEO wants immediate briefing. Zara continued filling out forms, her handwriting precise and methodical. Each word carried the weight of federal documentation that would become part of permanent government records. Witness statements, she announced, looking up at the passengers. I'll need contact information from anyone who observed the discriminatory behavior. 15 hands shot up immediately. The businessman handed her his business card. The teenager provided her TikTok handle and email. Sarah reluctantly gave her employee information, knowing she was choosing sides against her own airline. 3:07 p.m. The social media nuclear explosion. The original live stream had spawned dozens of reaction videos across platforms. Had Ultramax discrimination was trending in 47 countries. Flight 447 was becoming the most documented discrimination incident in aviation history. A prominent civil rights attorney in Atlanta tweeted, "Watching at Flightgate 447 live stream. Federal contractor discrimination. We'll be filing amicus briefs. Contact my office." The tweet gained 12,000 retweets in 8 minutes. Celebrity activists began weighing in. A Grammy-winning singer with 23 million followers posted, "This is why we need accountability. Federal contracts equals federal standards, period." Ultramax's official Twitter account was flooded with thousands of angry comments. Their social media team had gone completely silent, unable to respond while legal reviewed every potential statement. 3:08 p.m. The Pentagon pressure. Zara's phone buzzed with a text from General Morrison, Joint Chiefs. Seeing social media reports, is this the Ultramax assessment? Need full report ASAP. She typed back. Conducting real-time compliance evaluation. Results are conclusive. The response was immediate. Secretary wants emergency briefing at 3:45 p.m. Can you make it? Absolutely. Field research concluding momentarily. Miranda overheard the exchange and felt the last shreds of hope dissolve. The Pentagon was moving their meeting earlier because of this incident. Military leadership was treating her discrimination as a national security issue. 3:09 p.m. The corporate desperation. Ultramax CEO Jonathan Roberts was personally driving to the airport, his Bentley weaving through traffic while he conducted emergency conference calls. His assistant had briefed him. Stock down 18%, federal contract at risk, social media meltdown, congressional inquiries already starting. The company's entire business model depended on government contracts. Without federal security partnerships, Ultramax would lose 31% of their annual revenue overnight. Roberts's legal team was already drafting termination papers for multiple employees. HR was preparing public apology statements. Public relations was booking crisis management consultants. 3:10 p.m. The documentation continues. Zara photographed Miranda's employee badge, David's supervisor credentials, and the gate information for federal records. Each image was automatically uploaded to secure government servers with precise timestamps and GPS coordinates. Miranda, for the federal report, please state your full name and employee ID number. Miranda Hayes, employee ID 47291. Her voice cracked with the weight of impending unemployment. Years of service with Ultramax Airlines? 8 years, perfect attendance, no prior complaints. Until today, Zara noted, writing methodically. The teenager's live stream peaked at 127,000 concurrent viewers. The video was being shared across every major platform. News organizations were already cutting clips for evening broadcasts. 3:11 p.m. The Federal Implications Chief Walsh received an urgent call from airport operations. We have Department of Homeland Security requesting full incident reports. Federal investigators en route. The implications cascaded through Walsh's mind. Federal investigators meant this was beyond a customer service issue. This was a compliance audit happening in real time, triggered by systematic discrimination. Ultramax wasn't just losing a passenger complaint. They were facing a federal civil rights investigation that could trigger audits of their entire operation. Zara sealed the completed federal forms in an official evidence envelope, each page bearing government watermarks and security features that made forgery impossible. These documents will be filed with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division within 4 hours, she announced. Standard protocol for federal contractor violations. 3:12 p.m. The media frenzy. Outside Terminal B, satellite trucks were setting up for live broadcasts. The story had evolved beyond airline discrimination into federal contractor accountability, civil rights enforcement, and corporate responsibility. Inside the cabin, Zara's phone displayed 23 missed calls from major news networks. She declined them all and texted her assistant. Handle media requests through official channels, standard federal protocol. The corporate showdown was about to begin, and the entire nation was watching. 3:13 p.m. The CEO arrives. Jonathan Roberts burst through the gate area like a man whose empire was crumbling in real time. His $3,000 suit was wrinkled from the frantic drive, his usually perfect hair disheveled. Behind him trailed a phalanx of executives, Chief Legal Officer, Head of Public Relations, and the Director of Federal Contracts. Ultramax stock had plummeted 23% in 18 minutes. $2.7 billion in market capitalization had evaporated while Roberts drove across town. Washington, Roberts approached with the desperation of someone whose company's survival hung by a thread. I'm Jonathan Roberts, CEO of Ultramax Airlines. I understand there's been a serious misunderstanding. Zara looked up from her paperwork with the measured gaze of someone who'd negotiated billion-dollar defense budgets. Mr. Roberts, your timing is excellent. I have exactly 17 minutes before my Pentagon briefing. The live stream audience erupted as viewers recognized the CEO from business news coverage. Comments flooded faster than servers could process. CEO having to personally apologize. Billion-dollar begging session. This is corporate America reality check. Roberts's legal team immediately recognized the federal documentation spread across Zara's seat tray. Form 447B was notorious in corporate circles, the federal civil rights violation report that could trigger Justice Department investigations. Dr. Washington, on behalf of Ultramax Airlines, I offer our deepest apologies for this completely unacceptable incident, Roberts began, his media training evident despite his panic. Apologies are noted, Mr. Roberts. However, I'm operating under federal contractor compliance protocols. This requires a formal remediation plan within... Zara checked her watch. 16 minutes. 3:14 p.m. The federal ultimatum. Zara opened her briefcase and withdrew the Ultramax contract folder. The documents were thick, bound with federal security tape, bearing classification stamps that made Roberts's legal team nervous. Annual contract value, $1.247 billion, she read with clinical precision. Covering security operations at 347 airports, passenger screening oversight, and anti-terrorism coordination. Renewable annually based on compliance with federal anti-discrimination statutes, Section 14.7. Roberts' chief legal officer, Margaret Chen, stepped forward. Dr. Washington, we're prepared to offer immediate termination of the employees involved and a comprehensive investigation. Ms. Chen, Zara interrupted, I'm familiar with your legal background. Harvard Law, 1998. You understand that federal contractors operate under enhanced civil rights obligations. Chen nodded grimly. She'd spent her career avoiding exactly this scenario. 3:15 p.m. The corporate panic metrics. Roberts' phone buzzed with updates from his crisis team. Stock down 26% and falling congressional staffers calling for hearings. Competitor airlines circling for contract opportunities. Employee union demanding emergency meetings. International aviation authorities monitoring the situation. Dr. Washington, Roberts continued, we're prepared to implement immediate systemic changes. Full diversity training for all 45,000 employees. Independent Oversight Committee. Zero tolerance discrimination policy. Zara consulted her federal compliance checklist. Standard remediation measures, Mr. Roberts. However, this incident suggests systematic issues rather than isolated poor judgment. 3:16 p.m. The Pentagon pressure. Zara's phone rang. The caller ID displayed SecDef office, urgent. Dr. Washington. The voice was audible to nearby passengers. The Secretary needs your Ultramax assessment immediately. We have congressional inquiries starting and media requesting statements. Understood. I'm conducting final field evaluation now. The data is comprehensive. Good. The Senate Transportation Committee is already asking questions. We need your recommendation within 10 minutes. Roberts watched his company's fate being decided in real time by someone who regularly briefed the most powerful people in Washington. 3:17 p.m. The data presentation. Zara spread additional documents across her tray table. Federal Contractor Performance Reviews, 2019-2024. The papers showed declining diversity metrics, increasing discrimination complaints, and corporate responses that legal experts would later describe as systematically inadequate. Your company has received 247 discrimination complaints in the past 18 months, she read from an official report. Resolution rate, 12%. Average settlement, $3,400. Federal investigators classify this as pattern discrimination. Roberts' face went white. The federal government had been tracking Ultramax's discrimination issues for years. This incident wasn't creating a problem. It was confirming existing patterns. Margaret Chen frantically reviewed the data, recognizing internal company reports she'd personally written, recommending policy changes that were never implemented. 3:18 p.m. The social media tsunami. The live stream had spawned dozens of reaction videos across platforms. Justice for Washington was trending globally. Major civil rights organizations were issuing statements. Political figures were weighing in. A prominent senator tweeted, "Federal contractors must meet federal standards, period. Investigating Ultramax compliance immediately." The tweet gained 45,000 retweets in 6 minutes. Ultramax's social media accounts were flooded with boycott threats. Their customer service lines were jammed with cancellation requests. International partners were requesting clarification meetings. 3:19 p.m. The remediation demands. Zara consulted her federal compliance manual and addressed Roberts directly. Standard remediation for systematic discrimination includes immediate termination of all involved personnel, mandatory bias training for all customer-facing employees, independent civil rights monitoring for 3 years, and victim compensation fund of no less than $50 million. Roberts' financial team quickly calculated the compensation fund alone would eliminate their quarterly profits. The training requirements would cost additional millions. The monitoring would expose every aspect of their operations to federal scrutiny. Additionally, Zara continued, federal contractors with systematic discrimination findings face 18-month probationary status with quarterly compliance reviews. 3:20 p.m. The corporate desperation. Roberts made the calculation every CEO dreads: lose the federal contract and face bankruptcy, or accept devastating remediation costs and survive with damaged reputation. Dr. Washington, Ultramax accepts full responsibility. We commit to every remediation measure you've outlined. We'll exceed federal requirements and become the industry standard for inclusion. Mr. Roberts, commitments require documentation. I need signed agreements for all remediation measures before I can recommend contract continuation. Roberts's legal team was already drafting emergency resolutions on their phones. Corporate headquarters was preparing board votes via emergency conference call. 3:21 p.m. The federal decision process. Zara's phone buzzed with another Pentagon text. Dr. Washington, need recommendation now. Congressional hearing scheduled for Thursday. Your assessment is critical. She typed back. Recommendation ready. Corporate compliance plan under review. We'll brief in detail. And the response was immediate. Secretary wants to speak with you personally at 3:45. This is national priority. Roberts overheard the exchange and realized his company was now a national priority for federal leadership. Ultramax's discrimination problem had escalated to cabinet-level attention. 3:22 p.m. The final terms. Zara gathered her federal forms and looked directly at Roberts. Mr. Roberts, your company will implement the following within 30 days. Termination of all discriminatory personnel, $100 million diversity initiative, independent federal monitoring, and public transparency reporting. Agreed, Roberts replied without hesitation. Failure to meet any requirement triggers immediate contract termination and 5-year federal blacklisting. Understood completely. Your legal team will draft compliance agreements within 24 hours for federal review. Margaret Chen was already coordinating with headquarters. Emergency board meeting in 1 hour, full remediation approval required. 3:23 p.m. The resolution. Zara sealed her federal documentation and closed her briefcase with quiet finality. Mr. Roberts, your company has avoided federal contract termination. However, Ultramax Airlines is now under enhanced federal civil rights monitoring. Roberts exhaled for the first time in 20 minutes. His company would survive, though permanently changed. Dr. Washington, thank you for giving us the opportunity to make this right. Zara stood, adjusting her blazer with the same dignity she'd maintained throughout the ordeal. Mr. Roberts, federal contractors serve the American people. Today's incident reminds us why those standards matter. The live stream audience watched 156,000 strong as the most documented corporate accountability moment in aviation history reached its conclusion. Miranda Hayes had already been escorted from the premises. David Rodriguez was suspended pending investigation. Sarah, the trainee who documented everything, would be promoted for her integrity. 3:24 p.m. The aftermath begins. As Zara prepared to board her flight to the Pentagon briefing that would reshape federal contractor oversight, the corporate revolution was already beginning. Justice had been served not through violence or lawsuits, but through quiet dignity and strategic use of institutional power. The real change was just beginning. 3:25 p.m. The immediate consequences. Miranda Hayes cleared out her employee locker under security escort. Her 8-year career reduced to a cardboard box of personal items. Her termination paperwork cited gross violation of federal civil rights standards, language that would follow her to every future job interview. David Rodriguez received his demotion notice via corporate email while still standing at Gate B12. Transfer to ground operations effective immediately. His supervisor credentials were revoked within minutes. The gate supervisor, who had initially supported the discrimination, was suspended pending a full federal investigation. His 20-year tenure meant nothing when measured against systematic bias patterns. 3:26 p.m. the systemic transformation. Roberts announced Operation Dignity over Ultramax's internal communication system, reaching all 45,000 employees simultaneously. The message was clear. Comprehensive bias training for every customer-facing employee, mandatory within 60 days. The company's chief technology officer was already coding a real-time discrimination reporting app that would give passengers direct access to federal oversight authorities. Every complaint would be tracked, time-stamped, and automatically forwarded to the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. An independent ombudsman with direct CEO access would be hired within 30 days, a federal requirement that gave discrimination victims immediate corporate escalation beyond normal customer service channels. 3:27 p.m. The Federal Response Attorney General Patricia Williams issued a statement from Washington. Federal contractors must exemplify the civil rights standards they're entrusted to protect. The Department of Justice will investigate all systematic discrimination patterns among government partners. The Transportation Security Administration announced mandatory new protocols for contractor oversight. Quarterly diversity audits would be conducted by third-party federal investigators with full subpoena power. Congressional Transportation Committee Chair Senator Maria Rodriguez scheduled hearings for the following week. Federal contractor accountability and civil rights compliance. 3:28 p.m. The resolution documentation Zara's Pentagon briefing would become the template for federal contractor civil rights enforcement. Her field research methodology, documenting discrimination in real time with multiple witness layers, would be adopted across all government agencies. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division received her complete incident report at 3:31 p.m., triggering automatic review protocols for all Ultramax federal contracts worth $3.2 billion annually across multiple agencies. Executive Order 14127 was drafted within 72 hours, mandating real-time discrimination monitoring for all federal contractors, with agreements exceeding $100 million annually. 3:29 p.m. The industry transformation competitor airlines began voluntary adoption of Ultramax's court-mandated reforms before federal investigators reached their operations. Delta, American, and United announced similar discrimination reporting systems within 48 hours. The International Air Transport Association issued emergency guidance to member airlines worldwide. Best practices for civil rights compliance in customer service operations. Aviation industry stock prices initially fell as investors calculated compliance costs, then recovered as analysts recognized first-mover advantages in civil rights leadership. 3:30 p.m. The Educational Impact Harvard Business School announced the Williams Standard Case Study within a week, examining strategic dignity under pressure and institutional power dynamics in corporate accountability. The Federal Employee Handbook was updated to include Flight 447 as mandatory training for all personnel interacting with private contractors. Military leadership academies incorporated Zara's approach into coursework on strategic de-escalation and institutional authority. 3:31 p.m. The personal vindication. Zara boarded Flight 447 in Seat 2A with the same quiet dignity she'd maintained throughout the ordeal. The standing ovation from passengers lasted 47 seconds, captured on multiple devices and shared across every social platform. The flight crew personally apologized and upgraded her service to include priority disembarkation for her Pentagon meeting. Captain Jennifer Walsh, no relation to security, made a personal announcement thanking her for demonstrating the highest standards of civil rights leadership. Flight 447 arrived at Reagan National Airport exactly on time. Zara's Pentagon briefing would reshape how the federal government monitored contractor compliance across every agency. 3:32 p.m. The measurable results. 6 months later, discrimination complaints across the aviation industry had decreased 73%. Employee diversity training satisfaction scores reached all-time highs of 89%. Federal contractor compliance achieved 100% for the first time in agency history. Customer satisfaction scores for Ultramax specifically increased 34% as passengers responded positively to transparent civil rights policies and real-time complaint resolution systems. The company's stock price recovered completely within 8 months, with analysts crediting industry-leading diversity practices and federal partnership reliability as key factors in investor confidence. 3:33 p.m. The intellectual victory. No lawsuits were filed. No monetary damages were sought. Zara had chosen systematic reform over personal compensation, creating lasting change that would protect future travelers rather than merely punishing past discrimination. The Washington Protocol became standard federal procedure for handling contractor civil rights violations. Document everything, engage leadership directly, demand systematic solutions, and create transparent accountability measures. Miranda Hayes became a cautionary tale in customer service training programs nationwide. Her public humiliation of a federal official was studied in business schools as an example of how individual bias could trigger institutional accountability. The revolution had been conducted with paperwork, phone calls, and quiet dignity. No violence, no lawsuits, no public relations warfare, just strategic use of institutional power to create lasting change. True power, Dr. Zara Washington had proven, lay not in retaliation, but in transformation. 1 year later, the legacy. Dr. Zara Washington's approach became the gold standard for dignified resistance in corporate America. Speaking engagements at Fortune 500 companies nationwide featured her methodology, strategic dignity under pressure, and institutional power as a tool for justice. The Williams Standard was now taught in business schools across 3 continents. MBA students studied how one person's principled stand transformed an entire industry without filing a single lawsuit or seeking personal compensation. Federal agencies adopted her documentation protocols for all contractor oversight. Real-time incident reporting, multi-layer witness verification, and immediate escalation to decision-makers became standard government procedure. The ripple effect, Nashtad dignity. In travel reached 127 million interactions across all social platforms. The movement inspired similar accountability actions in healthcare, hospitality, and retail industries. Corporate executives worldwide implemented dignity audits to prevent their own Flight 447 moments. Passenger rights legislation introduced in Congress cited Dr. Washington's case as primary evidence for enhanced federal oversight. The Federal Contractor Civil Rights Accountability Act passed both chambers with bipartisan support. International aviation communities adopted similar protocols. The European Union required all airlines serving federal facilities to implement Washington Standard compliance monitoring. The personal impact. Dr. Washington continued her federal service, promoted to Director of Transportation Security within 8 months. Her Pentagon briefings were now attended by cabinet-level officials seeking her expertise on institutional accountability. She mentored young professionals through the Dignity Leadership Institute, teaching strategic approaches to workplace discrimination that created lasting change rather than temporary victories. Miranda Hayes found employment at a small regional carrier after completing mandatory federal civil rights training. Her experience became a teaching tool about the consequences of systematic bias in customer service. The educational revolution. Corporate training programs referenced Flight 447 as the definitive case study in civil rights compliance. The incident was mandatory viewing for all federal employees interacting with private contractors. Leadership principle emerged from her approach. Power used quietly creates change that outlasts conflict. Military academies, business schools, and government training centers incorporated this philosophy into core curricula. The broader message. These real-life stories demonstrate how systematic change requires strategic thinking over emotional reaction. Black stories like Dr. Washington's show that true power lies in creating solutions that transform institutions rather than merely punishing individuals. Touching stories of quiet courage prove that dignity maintained under pressure demonstrates character that can reshape entire industries. Life stories teach us that one person's principled stand creates ripples that benefit millions. Your voice matters. When you witness discrimination, Document it. Share it. Hold institutions accountable through strategic action rather than emotional reaction. Subscribe to Black Voices Speak for more stories of quiet courage changing the world. Real-life stories of strategic dignity, creating lasting transformation. Comment below. What injustice have you witnessed that needs systematic change? Your touching stories could be the catalyst for the next institutional revolution. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand that power isn't about position. It's about principles applied with strategic precision. Remember, the most powerful revolutions happen one dignified stand at a time. Black stories matter. Life stories inspire. Touching stories transform. The revolution continues. One flight at a time.